questions. And with us to help us understand what all of this means, and he always does, our legal analyst, attorney Matt Englett with law firm KEL. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so when the FBI gets involved, I make the assumption that there may have been something criminal has happened, right?
And there may have been. You know, I've reviewed a lot of the evidence that has come to light so far in this situation, and it does not look good for the banks and their attorneys. There seems to be a culture of corruption that's surrounded this foreclosure process. Anytime they lacked a piece of paper or some type of document they needed to foreclose, they'd simply make one up and introduce it as evidence, knowing that it wasn't accurate and the things on there were not attested to properly. And so it's a big problem. It's going to be a big problem.
Well, we've actually heard people say who were involved in this that, you know, these robo-signings, that people were signing documents on foreclosures, they didn't even really know what they were signing.
Absolutely. And the problem with that, you know, we have some people that I hear from that say, well, Matt, big deal because the people were behind on their mortgage anyway. Here's the problem with it. The courts rely on this information for accuracy because these are monetary judgments that are going to be issued against these homeowners, and this stuff follows them around for 20 years.
Right. And from what I've been able to gather about this, a foreclosure process is supposed to be very slow, very tedious, very meticulous for the exact reason you just said, right?
So that we can make sure the proper people get foreclosed on, and that when we enter a judgment against someone, we know it's accurate.
Okay, so if it turns out there was criminal activity, we still don't know that yet, but if it turns out there was, how does this affect anyone who is in foreclosure, who has been foreclosed on, and they were somehow involved in that?
If they're actually, if they bring criminal charges, I think the court systems, at least here in Florida, will probably, if there's a foreclosure involving one of those entities that they bring charges against, I think the courts are going to freeze those cases involving those entities. And that is not going to be good for the overall process. Now, if it's a law firm, then the bank can go out and hire another law firm, but they're going to have to go back and start from the beginning. So I think if you're in foreclosure, what you need to look at is, how can I resolve this case? Can I use this as a way, as a tool, to resolve the case with my lender? So, maybe you don't force them to go back. Maybe you go to them and say, I'd like to keep my home. Can you at least modify it for me?
And what we've been hearing, and maybe the banks, the lenders, will start listening to the homeowners.
They are starting to do that. We're seeing that banks are going to homeowners and saying, listen, we want to resolve this case. What do you want to do? Do you want out of the house, or do you want to modify the mortgage and stay in it? So maybe this is going to be an opportunity to resolve a lot of these cases.